Hi guys, welcome back to our Globe interviews. This is Starlight here, and today we have Thomas for today's episode. Please welcome Thomas. Can you share with us a bit about your background and how you got into the blockchain?
Yeah, sure. No, thanks for having me, Starlight. So I guess a general background about me. I studied computer science and economics at New York University for
Mhm.
bachelor's. And I was previously in tech consulting at FTI. I heard about crypto in maybe like around 2017 on the previous, crypto peak. And from the sideline, I watched for maybe like 2 years, not really knowing what's going on, but studying it. And I jumped in 2020. I think I got quite lucky, catching the entire DeFi summer of 2020. And that is really what launched me deep down the crypto rabbit hole, as many people probably experienced.
Mhm.
And currently, I'm the chief growth officer at Tranchess, a DeFi asset management protocol. And how I got there is, being crypto native for approximately 2 years. I was very fortunate to meet the co-founder at Tranchess and decided to join the team. Currently we're a very strong. We have a very strong team and that come from tradfi backgrounds. As well as the big tech firms, the FANG companies like Facebook, Google, etc.
Mhm. So, why are you interested in cryptocurrency and the blockchain industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question given that everyone nowadays is asking about crypto, and it's definitely a lot more popular than a few years ago. But
Mhm.
for me, I think it's a little bit cliche or corny per se, but I primarily got interested due to the decentralized aspect of crypto, as well as the idea of self-sovereignty of funds. If you think about I'm probably on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. I don't actually know the exact definition for them, but we're in a world now where I think for younger people, under 30 per se, it's a relatively uphill climb, right? Where there's increasing food prices, there's increasing prices for housing, for food, for education, for basically everything. And so, to like now, if we want to go buy a house, it'd be significantly more expensive and harder to do, comparatively speaking, than 20
Yeah.
years ago per se. And so, trying to combat that, I think decentralization is one of, is not the, it may not be the solution, but it's actually a very compelling one, right? And I argue that that like crypto provides the most level playing ground as well. And so that is something that I really stand by as well. And also on top of that, I just think blockchain technology in itself can bring immense value to people of all walks of life, right? Whether you're someone that has a lack of financial infrastructure or lack of access to financial infrastructure in Africa, or if you're someone that has extra money and wants to build up an investment account or saving account to in the future buy a house. I just think it has it provides value to everyone. And so that is really what got me interested and to learn about blockchain tech. And currently, at least, what I value the most and what I love the most is
Mhm.
what the people here that I work with, they really got me to stay, right? I work with a very strong team of they're all significantly older than I. However, they value my my ideas, they value my thoughts. It's a very growth oriented and collaborative space, and I think that is largely reflected across the entire crypto space, right? It's sort of not just decentralization of like from tech standpoint, but also from a team standpoint, right? They don't really care about your age, they don't care about your background, whether you come from strong schools like NYU or Harvard or Stanford or anything like that, or if you previously worked in an investment bank or anything, they don't
Yeah.
really care that much, right? They just care about your ideas, how smart you are, how hardworking you are, right? And so it's this very collaborative environment, and that's something that really got me passionate or increased the passion about the space. I'm not sure if other people know this, but crypto Twitter, we're very familiar with that, right? That's Twitter is the primary medium of communication or media for the crypto space, and I'd argue of the vast majority of people in crypto,
Mhm.
the key opinion leaders, for example, the influencers, they're all anonymous, right? Which is something that you do not see anywhere else in the world, really, right? An anonymous person can be the founder of our protocol, but still like raise millions and millions of dollars, right, of general funds, because people trust them, right? They don't really care about their name; they care about the person behind this anonymous or pseudonymous name, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that is something that is super unique, but I also love about crypto.
Can you share more about the Tranchess, what Tranchess stands for, and what you guys can offer?
Yeah, sure. So Tranchess itself is a structured asset management protocol, right? And so what we do and what we focus on is, really trying to empower DeFi users with asset management capabilities, while contributing to the overall paradigm shift of TradFi to DeFi, right? You know, an overall mission, right, or a goal per se that we have is to offer a comprehensive product suite, right, that offer sustainable long-term returns to users that have different risk appetites, right? So whether you're someone that is risk averse, right, or risk seeking, or just generally wants long-term exposure to the crypto space, right, we offer a product for you, for all of these users, right? And how we want to do this is also through diversification across crypto assets, multi-chain, and revenue streams. Yeah, so we essentially, to not going too technical, but we have three main funds, right? We are chess themed, as the name suggests, right? Tranchess. And so our main fund is the Queen Fund, right? And that is catered towards long-term investors, right? So it tracks the underlying asset, whether it is Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, and future major assets, and provide sustainable market leading yield for that. For example, the BNB fund is enhanced using our validator node on the Binance Smart Chain, or now it's called the BNB chain, right? And for risk seekers, we have the Rook fund. It is approximately 2x, 2 times leveraged product, where they can receive enhanced upside upon asset appreciation, for example, and there's no forced liquidation risk. And then finally, for risk averse investors, we have the Bishop Fund, right, which is a fully collateralized stablecoin like asset.
Okay, so what are your current thoughts on the state of the DeFi markets, and what do you think are some key obstacles to overcome?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the current state in general of DeFi is that there's been continuous gain of attention, or increasing attention, and there's increasing traction of the space, right? It's very hard to deny the amount of attention that DeFi specifically has garnered in the world, right? Especially from TradFi, of course. And there is a general or fundamental shift from DeFi 1.0 to DeFi 2.0. Now, what's the difference between DeFi 1.0 and 2.0, right? DeFi 2.0, generally speaking, as the name suggests, is just an improvement, or quote unquote improvement, of DeFi 1.0, where they're really trying to tackle the core problems of DeFi 1, right? And the issues, or the main issues that they're trying to combat right now are general sustainability of yield, as well as DAO governance. These are probably the two largest themes right now of DeFi 2.0. And answering your second question of what are the key obstacles, I think those are two very large obstacles that DeFi 2.0 currently is trying to overcome, and for the large part is I would argue doing relatively successfully, right? So I don't know, let's start from sustainability, right? Like I think that's a major obstacle at the current moment, because DeFi 1.0 really shone a light on how if yield is not sustainable, then the returns and the users also will not stay there for a long time, right? And the yield needs to come from different sources, right? So it needs to make economical sense. It doesn't really make sense for you to incentivize users using or let me phrase it another way, right? Like, it's important for the users and the protocol to be aligned, for their incentives to be aligned, right? In the past, we've seen protocols that, for example, might burn their treasury funds in order to prop up price in favor for users, right? But this is counterintuitive, because if you're burning the treasury funds, you're hampering your ability to develop long-term, right? And so that is in no way sustainable. And that is something that we have seen every so often, or pretty widely adopted across DeFi 1.0. That is something now at DeFi 2.0, we want to combat, right? So the second point being, DAO governance. DAO governance is something that is, DAOs, I think, is a relatively hot buzzword at the moment, right? And DAO standing for decentralized autonomous organizations. But from a general, governance structure-wise, it is something that is currently still very much up in the air, right? Up in the air with regards to efficacy, with regards to the how good it actually is in the long run. However, I personally think that there's a very important balance to strike between centralized and decentralized governance of a protocol, right? Everyone should be able to have a vote, have a say in the development of a protocol, but at the same time, if there's too much if there's too much decentralization, then it could also hamper the speed or the efficacy of general, proposals being passed, for example. And, the obstacles here are not just in how protocols are governed, but also in the implementation, right? So let's just say in a protocol, a vote or proposal is passed. Who now, okay, great, everyone agrees on this, but who will implement this? Who will fund it? How will it be funded? Right? These are all questions that have yet to be answered, and we're currently at the forefront of this at Tranchess, for example, as well. Yeah, and I think the final one, and is arguably one of the biggest obstacles for not just DeFi, but actually in the entire crypto space, is how are we going to onboard the next billion or a few billion users, right? Because right now, that I think the general crypto space is maybe a rough estimate of 250 million users, right? But that is a tiny fraction compared to the world. Obviously, it's maybe 3% of the general population, right? Which I would think is a very, very tiny amount, right? So the space is still very young. We're at the forefront of innovation, right? Crypto and Tranchess, for example. And what we want to focus on is making sure that the user experience is conducive to the onboarding of the overall users, right? It's hard for me to imagine my parents, logging onto MetaMask and managing their funds through a Web3 wallet, right? Where they have to add and subtract and add contract addresses. And these are things that, it's very hard for me to imagine most of the world doing this, right? My parents or my grandparents, for example. But so it's really the job of crypto to be able to adopt a more user-friendly environment so that it's much more comprehensible or comprehensible, sorry, and people can really can just onboard into the ecosystem much easier.
As a chief growth officer at the Tranchess, you would be considered a DeFi expert. However, you also mentioned you have a passion for NFTs. How did you discover NFTs?
I think NFTs right now are arguably one of the most hot topics in crypto, right?
Yeah,
I think a big reason why this is comparing DeFi to NFTs, for example, is that NFTs are something that everyone can relate to, right? It's if you overgeneralized, it's simply a JPEG, right? It's simply a picture.
Yeah.
And so people can relate to, oh, this is just a piece of art, right? But it's not that simple when you actually look into what it is, right? But I think that's just a fundamental reason of why NFTs were able to take off so much more aggressively, right? And adopt and onboard so many more users into crypto or into the blockchain world in comparison to DeFi, right? Mm-hmm. But for me, how I really, went into that rabbit hole is through friends, and primarily, when I first heard about Beeple's $60 million, NFT sale, right? That was what
That's mad.
It first confused me, right? I was like, how can this picture, right, be worth 60 million? Even if you spent every single day creating one, right? Because that's what Beeple's art was, I believe. He essentially created one picture every single day for a year and put it all together into one big one, right? That made me interested. I was like, okay, how can it sell for this much? They must know something that I don't, right? And so I started looking into it, started reading up on, what NFTs are, non-fungible tokens, right? How the tech works behind it. And and I really fell into that rabbit hole in March of 2021 approximately. That was also the same month of where Beeple had that sale. And at that time, it was NFTs were primarily art oriented, right? There was no real utilities attached. It was just pictures primarily, right? Or digital pictures that are just being traded on OpenSea, right? However, for example, at Tranchess, we are encouraged to have diverse interests, right? I personally have a very, very wide, interests. Yeah, so I'm interested in both, obviously my work is revolving around DeFi. I'm constantly, knee deep in DeFi. However, at the same time, I like to understand around like the peripherals of the crypto space, right? It's very important to be able to understand the different movements in the space, the new innovations, right? And so when I was just onboarding into Tranchess, for example, that's when NFTs were really taking off. So in our team, for example, we have people that are professionals in structured products, in the legal space, in centralized exchanges or SEXs and DEXs, so short for centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. And then I myself and a few others are much more into NFTs as well. So we have a very wide array of interests and expertises. And for me, I'm the resident NFT expert, I guess, right? And so, yeah, so I was encouraged from the team, and I've really never looked back, right? Because as you dive deeper into NFT space, I think it's a relatively, it's like a consensus across the entire NFT space that this space is so young and there's so much unexplored space in NFTs that there's so much room for innovation and growth, that everyone has a very open-minded and a very innovative entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah. I feel like now the NFT is not only about the pictures, and also there have so many music and other arts you can find out in the NFTs space.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What is it about the NFTs that made you so interested, and what role you envisions NFTs to play in the future?
Yeah, I think I briefly touched upon what I love about NFTs earlier, right? But for me, it was there was a light bulb moment when I was researching NFTs and learning about it in early to mid 2021, that there is so much potential for a wider application of utility and synergy across DeFi and everything else in the world with NFTs, right? For me, obviously, I think about it from like bridging DeFi with NFTs, right? I think this combination is actually largely unexplored even today. However, there's been multiple protocols that have done some pretty innovative things, and I personally think NFTs in general can have such a direct application with DeFi and will eventually be explored, right? I'm not privy to share too much, but there's no doubt that there will be activity in that space. Because if you think about it from a practical perspective, right, NFTs in general can act as an on-chain verifiable proof of ownership of something, of anything really, right? This utility is immense, right? Like it can represent your ownership of a concert ticket, right? Or it can represent the ownership of your membership in an exclusive club, whether it is a golf club or anything of the sort, right? And this is something that can be applied to DeFi as well, right? If you think about it from, if you have participated in a DeFi, you understand that there's ownership of liquidity in DeFi, right? Like you can yield farm, you can put pairs of assets to provide liquidity in a pool, right? In an automated market making pool, for example. But what an NFT can do is it can actually abstract that to where this NFT now represents your percentage like liquidity in this AMM pool, right? AMM pool is short for automated market making. And so that's just an example of like how DeFi can benefit from this, right? And not only that, right? Not only can it represent liquidity ownership, whether it is like in an AMM pool, but it can also represent your governance participation rights, right? Which is, as mentioned before, a key obstacle of DeFi, right? Like it can, for example, your NFT can represent your past votes. Or it can also represent, it can cater towards the future gamification models, right? Where an NFT can, for example, represent your track record and your ability to generate generate good yield and trade successfully on chain, right? These are all different aspects that NFTs can be used and applied in different ways, whether it is for, as I mentioned, liquidity ownership, for governance participation, or for gamification, right? So this is definitely something that is very ripe to be explored, right? This connection between DeFi and NFT, and I'm definitely very excited to see how that will develop.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so the last questions, but not least. So how to start investing in crypto as beginner, and any tips you can share?
Yeah, certainly. I think, for me, it's not so long ago that I was a relative beginner, right? I think, from the grand scheme of things, right? I've been in crypto maybe like 3 years approximately now. And to most crypto native people, that's actually a decent amount of time. But the grand scheme of things, when people from TradFi hear about this, or in general, they will think 3 years is not long at all, right? But I can completely relate to someone that is completely new, but also someone that is relatively tech savvy and just wants to understand it more deeply, right? So I'll speak about it in two sections, right? So if you're completely new to crypto or Web3 in general, right, I just think that the best way to do it is by observing and having some skin in the game and just remaining open-minded, right? I think the worst thing you can do is trying to explore crypto with preconceived notions, right? It's so important to remain open to the different things that crypto does and the way that crypto moves, right? I think most people that have extensive experience in crypto would agree with me that crypto is very irrational in very many ways, right?
Yeah.
Whether it is JPEGs that can sell for 60 million, for example, or it's or tokens that can just go up and are incredibly volatile, right? And this is something that is just, I think, characteristic of a decentralized space. So I just think, there's with decentralization, however, there is a lot of innovation, right? And this innovation is good. I would argue is very good, right? So I would just recommend anyone that's completely new to, stay open-minded, go onto Twitter, for example. I think Twitter is a must-have for crypto, and just look at what people talk about, right? Research it, try to understand it on a deeper level. And in that process, you try to figure out what you actually enjoy, right? If you're into DeFi or NFTs or GameFi, for example, right? GameFi being game finance combined. These are, or layer ones or layer twos, right? Like protocols and chains. These are all very large areas of crypto, and there's going to be plenty of innovation and information for you to consume there, right? To keep you busy for a very, very long time. And, find whatever you're interested in and dive in. Now that's for someone that's previously, that previously had no experience, right? For someone that now is relatively tech savvy and maybe has some, basic level of crypto, right? I would just think that it's important to interact with protocols on a personal level, right? It's important for you to be able to first understand, but also to trust the technology, right? Yes, in crypto, code is law. However, it's important for you to not like that. Essentially, it's similar to the first point of having skin in the game, right? It's one aspect of learning and understanding it, but it's a whole nother aspect of actually using it and being sort of reliant on the code that you're interacting with, right? You need to make sure that you can understand how the economics of a protocol function, right? In crypto, we call it tokenomics, right? Token economics. But you also need to understand, how each person or how each, I guess, function in a protocol interacts with the other. Yeah. So I think it's just, go in, dive in, be detailed, right? Be humble, be open-minded, and just speak with different people of different levels, and you'll be super surprised in how many like-minded people you'll meet, and there's so many brilliant people that it's an extremely rewarding experience, and has nothing less than amazing for me.
Thank you guys for watching today's episode. If you like the content, please like and leave the comment down below and subscribe our channel. And thank you, Thomas, for coming to our interviews today. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.